I just recorded a post. Well, it will be a post on Instagram about how I'm always talking about tending to the light and how the light outside of us influences the light inside of us. The light that you already are. We already are light. You don't have to go looking for it. But tending to that light is what I think is really important in any kind of health and healing journey. And it's also really important to honor the darkness, not just outside of ourselves, but also the dark bits within us. And I was thinking maybe I'll go live on Instagram and talk about this because I have more to say. And then I thought, no, maybe I'll do a podcast. So I checked in with my body versus just trying to make a decision with my mind, which I recommend for everybody, that journey into the body. When you're going to make a decision, or you need to make a decision, if you can check in with your body and see what your body is telling you. And obviously, podcast won out. So when I checked in and I said, create a live, go live on Instagram, it wasn't really resonating for me. I feel it in my solar plexus. And then I said, record a podcast, and that felt much more energized within my body. So I thought, okay, then I'll just be doing that. And it may be a while before this podcast is actually released. So you'll have to go back. Well, you can see when I'm wearing this dress. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can go back, but you don't need to go back. It's okay. We're just moving forward. It just might be a while before this one is able to come out. And that's always kind of interesting because I'd love to release it, tomorrow so that you know where I am right now. But I still think it always has relevance. It's always I'm putting information out there that is hopefully helpful whenever it comes out. The point being that the dark bits are important for us to tend to those parts of ourselves that we don't really like to tend to. And it's interesting because what's been coming up for me recently is self doubt. A lot of self doubt has been bubbling up for me to heal, to take a look at that, to work with that, and I think it's an opportunity to heal. And anytime something comes up that seems more like a dark bit, part of our fears, our traumas, the things that we've been through, or the things that we don't like to talk about or share or deal with, it could be relationship related, it could be really anything, it could be spiritual, mental, emotional, social, any of those areas. But the point is that we don't really want to do that work. We're resisting that work. And where we find ourselves really resisting and pushing against and having a lot of fear is often the greatest place of transformation or a place of liberation for us. I would say there's probably some incidences where that's not the case, but more than not, that's what I see, that's what I feel in my own life. So this has been coming up for me, which is really interesting. I just love how the universe will keep showing you things, or whatever you want to call that, life force, energy, God, universe, whatever, where you keep getting shown something. And it's an opportunity, and you are perfectly able to ignore it. We can just keep ignoring it if we want to, shove it down. And I believe that that's what contributes to making us sick in all kinds of ways, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually sick, is that we're shoving things down. We're not actually moving through something because there's usually some kind of fear or shame around that dark bit that we don't want to look at. And it's not like these dark bits are unfamiliar to us, because when they rise, we are familiar with them. They're a part of who we are, but we don't really but it can still feel a little bit shocking sometimes, of like, that's up again. I've done all this work. Why would that be coming up again? Or maybe it's showing up for the first time, or you're really recognizing it for the first time. And what happened in the last few days, well, this has really been going on for a while. This is not a new thing. Self-doubt comes up. And I usually work through that really easily, but I tend to really focus on tending to the light, really focus on the light and healing. And I know in all of my trauma training that I've done years, I mean, I'm what, 32 years into. Before that, it was even I was super into self-help stuff and energy work and all kinds of things, but I've been in the field of the profession of mental health for over 30 years now. So, you would think that at this point, I would know what I'm doing, and intellectually, I get it. Sometimes we just don't feel it. We don't feel into what's happening for us. So this time it's been coming up. I've been really paying attention to it. And I've been really, I think, good at checking things out with the people who are important to me. So if I notice that I kind of in a shame storm and I know it's around self doubt, but I've been running some story in my head that is like, "Oh, they're probably mad at me because of some conversation that we had a year ago." Like, some interesting stuff has been coming up. It doesn't necessarily have to make sense. Do you understand that that's not the way shame works? It doesn't make sense. It's just and I think it's a way that we try to protect ourselves, and our psyche attempts to protect itself when actually it just kind of gets in our way. It keeps kind of holding us hostage or getting in our way so that we can't move forward because we keep tripping over it. And that's some of the stuff that's been coming up with relationships that I'm in, mainly work colleagues. And so I just have been checking it out with the people and say, this is the story that I'm making up. The other day, when you didn't respond to one of my messages, I'm imagining the story that my mind is making up about that is that I've somehow offended you or that you don't really like working with me, whatever the stuff is. And it gives the person, even if that were true, when most of the time it's actually not true, but if even if it were, that's okay because I'm opening to the dialogue and checking it out with the other person to say, if there is something that we could work out, that we could communicate about, then I would like to hear it. But more than that, it's usually people like, "Wait, what? I didn't respond to what?" They didn't even see the message, or they have no idea what you're even talking about because it's all in your head, some look that somebody gave you in a meeting, and now you've decided that they hate you or something. Yeah, it just sounds crazy when you talk about it from this perspective, but this is the way we kind of move through our lives, consciously or unconsciously. So I've been doing a lot of just checking things out. When I recognize that my mind is making up a story, then I check it out. And this is all from my shame resilience work days. This is, all the work that I did in Brene Brown's research and her work. Anyway, so that's where that comes from. That's how I know how to do that. But anybody can do that. You can always check things out and say, this is the story that I'm making up and I just want to check it out. And almost always people are saying no. And that's not what happened. And it really builds a deeper relationship with the people who are important to you. Now, you may not want to do that with just anybody and everybody because if it's not an important relationship to you, then you can just let that stuff go. I think that's a great option too. But in terms of doing this work on the dark bits of ourselves, as this self doubt has come up, and and I have noticed that there's a real subtle shift depending on what I eat. So I'm getting ready to do a food mood. I don't know when this episode is coming out, so it may be a recording by the time you hear this. But I offer free classes every other month and it's always mood related. So you guys are welcome to come anytime. You can come on over to my website and register for those. They're free. And I'm always talking about some mood related thing. I did seasonal mood enhancement last month. And then in March, I will be doing food mood. And then I think in May, I'm looking at doing mitochondria and mood. I think that would be fun. So we'll see. But food. So, food, most people don't realize how much food affects our mood, and it's typically quite subtle. And some of us, it's real obvious and it's a really important piece, and other people, it doesn't seem to be a really important piece, but it is a piece of the puzzle. So I noticed that I was even feeling a little, and it's very fine, so it's subtle, and you could just easily miss it. But I was noticing that there were specific foods were kinda irritating, like stirring the pot a little bit on this self-doubt and this feeling of, and some of the thoughts that were going on in my head, the feeling of confusion. Is that a mind thing, or is that a feeling? The feeling was kinda sad, not super sad, but kinda sad, frustrated. And the thoughts were like, is any of this even worth it? It feels like I wanna throw in the towel and just be like, "Oh, I just don't wanna do any of this stuff," whatever it is that I was doing. That's kind of the feeling of it. And I thought, what do I need? I have so many tools in my toolbox. I never ever regret going into the toolbox and just picking one. I never regret going outside, stepping outside, regardless of the weather. If I just take a second and go outside, I always feel better. If I take a walk, I feel better. If I go sit in front of my red light panel, I feel better. If I do some breath work or cozy up with one of my favorite books, and I read to learn. So I really like picking one of my books that talks about quantum biology or our electric body or some kind of spiritual something. And I feel better, right? But I was like, okay, so I've got all these tools. What tool do I want to use? And I thought, I really want to do some breath work right now. And I had some work to do. So I did that first. And then I had a breath work offering class session that I had purchased and wasn't able to attend live from Erin Gunzelman. I had bought this class, this workshop with her, and I wasn't able to attend live. So I watched the replay. And I am always just can't believe how powerful breath work is in shifting things. And it's unbelievable how it all works, right? And in this breath work class with Erin, who, if you don't follow Erin, I don't even know how I stumbled upon Erin, but this is what I'm talking about with how the universe just keeps giving you all these opportunities, whether you see them or not. Some don't feel very good and some feel fantastic. And I think we even miss some of the fantastic ones. But Erin, when I first came across her Instagram page, I guess is how I found that. I immediately, like, she just has this incredible energy, and I immediately was drawn in and liked her and thought, this person is really special. And then there was a little piece of me that was like, she's special, I'm not. Not terribly conscious of that, but I could kind of feel a little bit of that. Not in a competition way, but an almost, you could call that shame, that self-doubt of like, I'll never be like that kind of thing. But I wasn't conscious of it really until now, hindsight looking back, because I was just so enamored by her and her glow. And I was like, oh, she is something. And so then a couple every now and then her post or something will pop up and I just always really resonate with it. She's a quantum sister and I like everything that she talks about. And um this particular day that I was about to shut down social media, not shut it down, but like turn it off from me. Like I was in a not great mood, feeling a lot of self-doubt actually that day. This was really recently. And Aaron popped up on my feed, and I thought, "Oh, I don't know, I kind of feel like just seeing what Erin had to say in this live that she did." So I caught the replay of that too, and it just was exactly what I needed to hear. It really resonated with me, and I thought, "This is really cool." And she was talking about breath work, and I thought, "Oh, yeah, I want to do some breath work with Erin." So that's how it all unfolds. If we're letting it, if we will see how everything is unfolding. And so that's when I purchased this breathwork class with her. But then I couldn't attend live because I was busy having a bunch of self-doubt and a training that I was doing. which was great. But and it it's so funny how it all kind of works out. And it would be really easy to say, see, no need to have self doubt. But I really wanted to explore this deeply because it's just going to keep coming up and up and up if you don't actually look at it. So I'm doing this breath work replay with Erin, and it is so powerful. If you haven't done breath work, breath is life. So when you do this kind of specific kind of breath work, it's what you call it work, but it's more of a breath practice. And so you're doing these different kinds of breathing techniques. We were doing it a pretty long, it felt really long for me. And there was a ton of tingling in my body. You almost like you're having this out of body experience. And you want to stop because for me, there was a lot of agitation was coming up. I was very wiggly and wanted to stop. Just that's what happens. And we don't stop and unless you are experiencing fear, tons of fear is coming up, or it's triggering trauma, or you're feeling traumatized, then we stop in the breath work. So I'm pushing through as best I can in this class of hers, and I'm really feeling it because if you push through, then you can get to the miracle of it, to this marvelous feeling. And so I was pushing through and I got to that place and it was really just fantastic. And I was feeling a huge relief. Erin is somebody who is just very, very loving. She loves everybody. She's the most comfortable person I have ever seen with saying I love you to complete strangers. My friend Donna that I had on here, the beauty ed, when she has had a few drinks, she will say, love you. She's British. I love you to everybody. But other than her, who is Donna's very loving too. Erin is even more loving. She is always saying, I love you to everyone. And you can feel it. I just felt really, really good in that moment. And I really got it. No one's light is brighter than yours. And I don't mean that like yours is brighter than no, no, not one of us has a brighter light than the other. We are magnificent creatures. Every single one of us is light, and it is just as magnificent as the next person's. So I guess another way of saying that is our no one's light is dimmer than anyone else's light. It's just unique to you. And so I was really aware of that. I was really feeling that because I know that. I talk about that a lot in my work on this podcast, but to really feel it, I'm feel it deep in my cells. I was feeling that. And what was coming up is that I was really proud of the fact that I was willing to just stick with the dark bits and I was willing to stick with this extremely uncomfortableness that I was feeling. I just really wanted to quit with the breathing, which, by the way, if you did, it's okay. There's no judgment around that. But if you quit, then you don't get to the magic of it. And so many things in life. If we quit when it feels difficult and uncomfortable, then we don't get to the magic of it. Which begs the question, how do you know? How do we how do we have the discernment to decide when to quit, when to reach out for help because we're drowning, or when to push through? And that came up on a run for me this morning. All of this has been coming together. Just this is where my mind goes. So now y'all, you start to see on this podcast, like I can go to some pretty interesting places in my mind, but I'm also really willing to do messy work, internal emotional work. And before I go into the run this morning, it popped into my head and I want to make sure that I say this. I have never seen beating up on yourself to actually push people forward in their life. It creates blocks, holds things in and down for us. I get it. I understand. I struggle with that kind of self-criticism myself, and I see it all the time. I've seen it for years in my work where people think, well, I'm just holding myself accountable. I'm just when you are really self-critical and your self-talk is just actually downright mean, that holds you back, that shoves things down, that does not help you raise the vibration of who you are. When you do that, the whole universe opens up to you. Like, it is just very it's counterproductive, even though it kind of it seems like it's making sense that you're going to be disciplined and hold yourself accountable. But if you're being mean to yourself, that does not work. Self love, self respect, self compassion, self kindness, that's the way that I see forward, which can be really challenging for a lot of us. And if you just rolled your eyes when I said self love, or you kind of went, ha, made like a little noise, or it felt a little disgusting to you, or it feels a little woo woo, or whatever that is, I'm talking to you right now that you deserve love and kindness most of all from you. Is the only way that you're going to receive it. I mean, really receive it on a cellular level in your life, is if you love yourself deeply, not in that whole ego way, deeply, deep respect for yourself. So that's my rant about that. You don't have to. You can live your entire life not really even ever knowing and tending to the light that you are, denying or not really showing the gifts that you have, the unique gifts that you bring to the world. You don't have to show them to the world if you don't want to. That is absolutely your choice to make. I would just invite you in this very moment to take a really good look at that and see if that's the kind of life that you want. Are you really feeling like you are in alignment with who you really are and what you came here to do and what you came here to share? Because if there's a lot of potential in you that you are holding back, you might want to go ahead and let go of the things, some of the get into those dark bits of yourself and work with that and become more harmonious in terms of the parts. And so that I would call that, less chaos in the system, more nourishment, nourishing on a cellular level in your nervous system, and more coherence. All of it, your body, your mind, your soul. That's the invitation that I would have. And I believe that part of that is being really uncomfortable, right? So this is on the run, back to the run this morning. I don't like running. Yet. But I got a really strong sense years ago. I think it was after a meditation and it was auditory. I get messages auditorily, or I just know things sometimes. I don't ask to know them. I just suddenly know something. And it's dumb stuff. Like, I'll be walking with somebody and say, "Hey, tell me about your daughter," or something, and they never told me that they had a daughter. I don't know how I know they have a daughter. There's no way for me to know that. I didn't look it up. This is years ago that happened. Lots of little things happen. I'll ask somebody, like, I don't know, the name Mary keeps coming up. Who's Mary? Why is Mary important? And they're like, "Oh, how do you know that?" Like, I don't know. I don't know how I know stuff. I don't ask for these things. It doesn't seem to be necessarily helpful, or doesn't seem to be harmful in my life either. But anyway, sometimes I just hear stuff and not in a bad way. Just, it's spirit. I think of it as like spirit guidance, whatever, higher self. And it's usually something really helpful. And this time I heard, and this was years and years ago, "You like running." That's what I heard. And I thought, "Oh, I absolutely do not love running. I'm not, I'm not going to be a runner." And I happened to mention that to my neighbor, Eileen. And Eileen said, "Hey, wait, you want to really try that out? We should run." And I went, "Oh, no, I do not want to do that." So Eileen's very persistent and said, "Hey, yeah, let's go on Thursday mornings running." So we're running on Thursday mornings. I'm running with Eileen, and she's awesome because she always tells you you can stop, and then she says, "Oh, no, you can't stop yet." And I was like, "You told me I could stop anytime." And she's like, "Yeah, you can, except that you shouldn't, because we've almost done a mile, and let's do a mile or whatever." So she's great. She She's really fun, and she's about to turn 65 and is amazingly she's just an amazing, inspirational, fit person. So she's got me running. So it's Sunday morning, and I think, "I really feel like going for a run. I'm gonna go for a run." And the whole time I'm running, I'm thinking, "I don't really like this. I don't know." And I thought, "This is uncomfortable. I don't like the uncomfortable. When does this get better?" Everybody tells you that's a runner that this gets better, and I wanna just see. I may never run again in my life. It's interesting to start running at 52, almost 53 years old, but whatever. I just wanna see if I can get to a place where I like it. And I was thinking on the whole run, how do you know when to quit, when to push through, when something is uncomfortable? And I thought about breath work. When fear, when you are afraid, or it's triggering trauma, or you feel traumatized, you can stop at any time, by the way. At any point, if you decide, you know what, I don't feel like doing this, I don't want to, I'm listening to my body and I don't want to do this, don't. You can absolutely listen to your body. So then, how do we discern? And I think that that is really a place of prayer. It's a place of prayer in me. It's a conversation that I'm in. It's a conversation that I want to be in with other people, of discerning when to push forward, because it's going to take you to that magic. It's going to take you to the miracle. And when to say, you know what? No, when to throw in the towel. I think if we are in fear and we're suddenly very afraid, good time to stop, good time to reach out, ask for support. If we are feeling traumatized, stop. If you actually are the victim of something going on in your life, some kind of abuse or situation, yeah, get out, stop. That's a good time to not push through. There are reasons that people don't. I respect all of that. I just want to acknowledge that there are so many different ways that we can live our lives. There are so many things that there are nuances to things. And so you really have to listen to yourself, listen to your own guidance of what are you being told to, what do you feel, first of all, and then what are you really being told by your body, by maybe even spirit, like what is speaking to you in your life, through your life, showing you the places to keep going, to go past the messy uncomfortableness of it, so that you can get to the magic. And where are you pushing when you- you're out of flow, you're going upstream. You're pushing to try and make something happen that is not going to be part of the magic and not going to be part of the miracle. Not that it's bad necessarily, because I think it all gets, nothing is wasted. It all gets it gets incorporated into our life, right? I don't believe that there are things that are not used in service of our lives. And, we talk a lot about choice. Like, what choices do you wanna make? Like, certain things are really hard. Do you wanna do that or not do that? I talk about cold plunging is hard, but so is feeling miserable all the time. So do you wanna try a cold plunge or not? There are times that I would say don't. It's stressful on the body. I believe that we need to shore ourselves up and really work on nourishing our nervous system before we do some of the harsher, that if it feels harsh to you, because cold plunging isn't really that harsh. It's hard until it's not hard. And if it doesn't feel right to you, if you're like, "I'm not resonating with that, that feels miserable to me," then don't do it. But I do think it's interesting, and I mentioned this to my mother this morning. I was telling her all about this, and which, because she loves to hear all these things. She'll listen at any time. And I was saying, it's interesting to me that we will all of us we tend to be willing to hang out and live slightly miserable and kind of complaining about certain things in our lives, but we're not willing to go through a lot of discomfort that is actually going to take us to a level of I have never seen beating up on yourself to actually push people forward in their life. It creates blocks, holds things in and down for us. I get it. I understand. I struggle with that kind of self criticism myself, and I see it all the time. I've seen it for years in my work where people think, well, I'm just holding myself accountable. I'm just when you are really self-critical and your self-talk is just actually downright mean, that holds you back, that shoves things down, that does not help you raise the vibration of who you are. When you do that, the whole universe opens up to you. Like it is just very it's counterproductive even though it kinda makes it seems like it's making sense that you're gonna be disciplined and hold yourself accountable, but if you're being mean to yourself, that does not work. Healing and health and vitality that we actually are wanting. So, what are the things that actually are going to be uncomfortable, but are gonna take us to the place of vitality, magic, and miracles? And what are the places that we're sort of barking up the wrong tree, banging our head against the wall, sticking in situations and things that are actually hard and are not good for us. And I think about this in the simplest of terms too, the choices that we make in our daily life that I guess we feel like we have to make them, or it's just more of a habit that we make these choices that we make, and some of them good, some of them meh, whatever. Some of them maybe not such great habits that we have. And yet, are we really looking at those? And a lot of people will say, well, does it even matter? I think it only matters if you want it to matter. And I think that you have the right to make whatever choices that you want to make in your life. And at any point, at any time, pivot. Be willing to get uncomfortable in something that you're leaning towards that's resonating with you, but you know it's not going to feel great, like breath work sometimes, or cold plunging, or eating a certain way at first may seem hard. And then all of a sudden, it's like, my body loves this. This is how did I ever not do this? Where I think what I see a lot in my work is people pushing themselves because they think something is going to be healthy. They think it with their mind. They read about it, and especially around food, like certain foods and superfoods that are actually making them sick, but they don't know that until they know that. And then when people have a lot of little obscure things that are kind of irritating to them, but not completely debilitating. And then when it does get kind of debilitating is when they're like, wait, something is not right. I need to do something about this. And many of them are quite shocked that it's sometimes what they think is healthy in their lives, the foods that they're eating are actually creating a problem. Their light environment, they're working out in the gym all the time and they're working out late or early in the morning. And we just tweak some of those things because our light, so light, water, magnetism, light, water, earth, food, that's what informs life. That's what nourishes life. That's what shapes our lives. That's what nourishes us, right? So, all of that is information. Food is information. It's really light. And even people always think of plants, not just, yeah, also the animal foods that we eat. All of that is information. The light environment that we're in, information. Water holds information, holds memory, which is incredible. So when you start to kind of open your mind up and look at these things, then some of the things that we've been told forever that are good for us are actually, they might be okay for some people, but they are making you sick. And they create these kind of chronic conditions like and histamine issues, thyroid, sometimes what looks like arthritis, even if you don't have RA, some autoimmune issue going on, headaches, digestive issues, all the digestive issues, like all of these things that we put up with because it's part of our lives, and we don't realize that some of the things, some of it is really easy, not so easy. It's simple to turn that ship around. But we get into this, I need to eat this and I need to do that and I work out at the gym and we just have to think about things. But if there are things in your life that you're making yourself do that you hate, like certain food you're making yourself eat, certain things, if you continually hate it and it does not feel good after, or it might, I'm trying to think, there are certain examples that I'm like, oh, you might feel better like after the gym, is what I was thinking. But I just say pay attention to that. Pay attention to your energy, to your digestion, to your mood. Just know that mood follows food. So, about 15, 20 minutes after you eat something, paying attention. How do you feel? How's your digestion? Have you tanked? Is your energy tanked? Or are you feeling more energized? Or and also how's your mood, right? That's the big thing, the mood. And it can be really subtle. You don't even recognize that you're kind of a little more agitated. You're a little more irritable, or you just don't feel quite right or great, but it's either so normal to you that you don't notice it, or it's not so bad that I mean, you just keep moving on. But if there are these things that you're doing that you constantly feel like, I hate this energetically, I think that's a message. I don't recommend that you continue to do those things. I don't think that that's this what I'm talking about in terms of getting uncomfortable and being willing to sit with the uncomfortableness to make it to the magic and the miracle. I don't think that's what's happening. And that's where I'm saying holding that prayer that I have for me, for anyone, of that discernment of how to make these decisions, how to notice the things that are kind of subtle, but could make a huge difference in your energy, in your mood, in your sleep, in all of the ways that you could feel a whole lot better, your digestion. Because where there are mental health stress, anxiety, depression, any of the mood related stuff almost always comes with digestive issues. They go hand in hand. Not surprising, right? The gut brain axis. But it's not the whole story. Like, we are electric beings first. So attending to that piece of ourselves tends to work the other stuff out, the other chemical kinds of things and mechanical things that are going on in our body. Did I just digress again? My point is that I think it's a worthy endeavor to spend some time around discernment and figuring out what things are worth sticking with and being uncomfortable. And sometimes that's the dark bits of our lives, the things that are kind of coming up in our life that we don't really want to look at. And it's continuing to come up, but there's magic on the other side. N- Not that it's that you're going to land in magic and then nothing else is ever going to come up and you're never going to have anything to work on. This journey is amazing, but it's happening really, really fast right now. I feel like you hear that, and there are people that talk about how the energy is in our new earth, and the energy, it just seems to be moving really fast. And one of the things I think is really important for all of us, and why I keep harping on nourishing our nervous system, is to be able to ride the waves of the emotions, of the change, of the uncomfortableness, and then all of a sudden you're content. And just how fast that is coming and going, to be able to ride that. I would call that stress resilience. You can call that whatever, any kind of resilience, or it's all frequency. So maybe that has to do with coherence. Yeah. Less chaos, more coherence. As above, so below. We have the cosmos on our side because it is us. Yeah. All of that harmonizing, that resonance, the healing, the turning down the danger signaling in us ourselves, on a cellular level, turning up the safety signals, all of that. right? Which is what I talk about on this show all the time. I think I've harped on this enough. I think this is long enough. How I want to end this is saying that I would love to see you in a free class or over on Instagram or commenting here so that we can stay in this conversation about discernment, about the magic of life and how fast everything is coming and being in the flow with riding the waves of the emotions and the changes in our lives. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. As always, I really appreciate all of our listeners.